Hello sewers, I just want to show you my preferred method of attaching the Dresden plates to the fabric. So what I like to do is not use pins because you're moving this around your machine all the time. So I've just got a small one here which would fit on a 6.5 inch square, but I had these spare layer cakes. So the first thing I do is fold this fabric in half that I'm going to use, and then in half again, and then I use my iron just to press that corner so I have a mark for the middle, and then I've got a little crease in the middle. Now if it's fabric where you can't see the fabric very well, because it's covered up, you can use a Sharpie or one of those erasable pens just to put a dot in the middle so that you actually have a black dot where you can see. Because what you want to do is take your Dresden plate and you want to center that black dot right in the middle there. You don't need to worry about these threads. You can trim them if you want to, tuck them under. They're going to be hidden anyway. So once you've centered, and it's up to you if you want to have your spokes centered as well, it really doesn't matter. My preferred choice is to glue based, and I just dab a bit on and then I iron it dry. You can also use a glue stick. Obviously you don't lather it everywhere, just enough to hold things down. Or you can use sticky tape which you peel off as you go. If you wanted to, you could also use double-sided seam tape just to hold it down. So what I do with this is I just flip that over, put a little dot on each one. It's just to stop it shifting, because when you sew it on the machine you're moving it round and round, and then just a couple in there, and not too much because you don't want big lumps of glue. This is washable stuff and it's made for quilters, so you can use other glue too. It doesn't have to be that one. Then I flip this over, looking for that black dot again because that's the easiest thing to find. Center that, gently press that down, and if you get any on your fabric, just wipe it off with your finger. Don't worry too much about it. Then I take my hot iron, press to dry the glue, and that also gives your block a press at the same time. I flip it over. I like to do the back as well to make sure that I've dried the glue. Now if you're not sewing it straight away, you can skip this step and just leave it to dry. So you can see that's holding that on there now, and then I could go ahead and sew around it. Now before I sew around it, I like to check my machine, the stitch I'm going to use. So you can see here I've played around a bit with my zigzag stitch, and I've decided on a fairly small one to go around the edge. Now I won't do all that now because it takes quite some time. I've also put in a couple of different backgrounds, so when you're happy with that, test it out on a bit of fabric, make sure you're right to go. Your backgrounds don't have to be plain, that's one of your mottled ones. For this one I chose this one. These were just in my stash. And then for this one I chose these, and some of you who've got fabric as old as mine will recognise some of these old fabrics. Now the centre circle that comes with these, that's the size of it before you decide what kind of seam. So it's big enough. If I fold that in half, you can see you've got a lot to play with, where you can sew a seam and then cut little slits in that if you decide you're going to sew another piece on the back. I have to confess I never have any success doing two pieces together unless I use the same fabric. This is what happens to me when I use two different fabrics. I always find it difficult for it not to get wonky. And then when I do that split on the back and I turn it out, I always find I'm seeing little bits of my other fabric. I haven't pressed it yet, but I'm never happy with them, and so I prefer not to use those. I have done the one where I tack it all around and turn it over and iron it down, but nowadays my preference is to use the Fix or something else like that. And what I did is I found a couple of things which I thought might be the right size, because I don't want it as big as this, and I just tested them on there to see which I preferred, and I preferred this one, and I used that to trace my circle. So these two, you can see I've already sewn around, and I changed my thread to blue so that hopefully you can see that thread there. And if I flip to the back of this one, you can see it's just a small line of zigzag. You don't have to go down the spokes. And I actually changed my bobbin thread after I tested the centre. The centre is a good place to test because you don't see it, you cover it up. So if you test your stitching on there after you've done this bit and decided what you're going to use, and then if you need to change your thread colour or your bobbin colour, you can do that. At the back here, when I start and finish, I don't reverse. I pull my threads through and knot them at the back, so that at the front, and this is where I started at the front, it's nice and tidy. So what I've got here, can't see that so much on the back of this one because it's much darker. What I've got here is a piece of scrap cut out already with Fix, because I didn't have any Fix that I could use. Now I've taken the paper off, and what you can do if you're worried about getting it right, remember I've got that black dot in the centre of all of these. I'm not sure if you can see it, but right there is where it is. Each of them has a black dot. I used my Sharpie so that it wouldn't iron off. But I wouldn't use black on a light fabric, obviously. So right there is my centre. So if I take my circle, I'm not going to iron this yet, and I fold it into quarters, and I just squish that point a little bit with my fingers. I'll put it down where the point is there. You see that there? That's the corner where I folded the circle. Then I can open it up, keeping that centre there, and then open that up, trying not to move it. And now I've got my circle in the centre, and if I keep my hand on it there and get my iron, I can now press that on, being careful of course not to slide my iron backwards and forwards, otherwise I'll shift that. And then I will just zigzag stitch around that in raw edge applique style. This is applique, but the edge obviously is turned because of the points. So I'm going to start, I'm not going to do back stitch, I'm going to pull my threads through to the back to make a nice neat knot. I just need to cool that down a little bit. So this one I haven't actually sewn yet. While that's cooling, we can have a look at how I've picked some different backgrounds just to make those stand out. I don't have a plan for any of these yet. These are just test pieces. Obviously I'm not going to use that because it's really gross. So I'm going to sew this in the same way. I'm going to pop it under my machine, and I'm just going to slide this across a little bit. it under my machine, and I've got a little red line on my foot on this one that I've picked out. I'm going to line it up, and you have to go slow. You're sewing a curve, you need to go slow. I'll put my needle down. I'm not sure if that's exactly what I want at this stage. My plan is to go slow and hopefully not stop. My problem is I am having a little bit of trouble seeing my red line, so it's probably not going to be as neat as I like. But I actually want to keep going if I can and not stop, because if you do that, it's less jaggedy. My stitch probably isn't going to be the same distance from the edge all the way round, but I can assure you that it's sturdy enough to last. In the picture I put up of that other purple Dresden plate quilt, that has been washed numerous times over the years, and those pieces are still on there. See, it's a bit slow, you need to be patient. This is why I chose the small one instead of the big one, and why I'm not doing all of the spokes as well, because the spokes are just the same, except that you're actually doing straight stitches and then you stop and turn and go down the next bit. Whoop. Now, if you're not very happy about doing a zigzag, you can just do a straight stitch for this. It probably would be a lot easier just to do a small straight stitch, and possibly neater. It's been a long time since I've done any of these. So I'm trying to work my way around and get pretty close to where I started from. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So I haven't back stitched, and you can see my threads hanging out here. It's not too bad, I would accept that. That doesn't look too bad. Trim these off, and then if you flip over and you just pull a little bit on these two stitches, not sure if you'll be able to see, I'll just get my I'm not unpicking, I just want to lift up the loop from the front thread and bring it in. That's two of them, and I don't want to cut it, I want it to stay intact. Okay, so I've got my front threads to the back, so you can see, oh, I'm still missing one. I thought I had all of them. Right, let's see. Certainly tell straight away when you look at the front. Now, if for some reason you can't pull that one through, I'm just trying to figure out which one it is. Not that one. Not. Might be that one. Let's try that. See how we go. Alright, that was it. If you can't pull it through, all you need to do is get yourself a needle, thread it and poke it through. So you can see there'll be none of that stitching over the top of another one, where it sometimes looks a bit untidy. And we just grab those threads and knot them at the back. They're not going to be seen, but you still need to trim them so that you don't have threads hanging. It's a much neater way to do it. Don't pull on them really hard because you don't want to gather up those stitches. Now the other ones that I haven't done, I did one to begin with here, but I now have to do my finishing one. Or was that? Oh no, I did do that one. Sorry, they're over here. And so that's your Dresden plate, and that's the small one. It measures around about 6 from spoke to spoke. A little bit less, I think. I think I figured that 6.5 was plenty big enough. So there's that one where I've done the centre. I haven't done the centre on this one yet. I thought I might either do light blue, so you can see how much bigger it is when you don't trim it, or the dark blue. I haven't decided yet. Now I'll just show you the big one, which obviously I haven't done yet. So there's this one. That is the same fabric as the one I just did, only a smaller version. And then this is a blue and white one that I showed you part of. So in the centre there, that will be whatever I decide to put in there. Now, I have sewn those circles together, but I can already tell from this one that when I open that, one side is puffier than the other. So maybe if I snip this side, that side won't be so bad. But what I did with these ones, I did the same colour, so they shouldn't show. And then for this one, I thought I might like a different colour, and I found that, and the way you colour test them is just slide them underneath and decide whether you like that particular colour or not, and I thought that was a pretty good blue for those. I put pins in it and then cut around, but then I realised I probably should have just drawn and sewn two together. Or I'll wait until I've got some more Lysafix so I can actually iron it on, which is my preferred method. I don't know what I'm making with any of these yet. I'll let you know when I figure that one out. I've already put a few of these bigger sets in the shop, and tomorrow I'm going to take in some of these ones, which will have 2 little Dresden plates in it. So for this one there'll be 24 because it takes 12 for this one, and this one takes 20 spokes. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'll let you know when I've got more.